Man, it is a time to be alive in college football, let me tell you. What a wonderful slate of games coming up this weekend, and it is time for some college football playoff. The first round of the playoffs are this weekend. Obviously, we're covering the whole thing, but we are going to recap an important game, and it was the Army-Navy game. We're going to recap that here in a little bit. We got playoff coverage coming up. Guys, we are not covering all the bowl games, but by golly, we're going to predict all 7 key bowl games that we are covering for Pigskin Frenzy, and then from there on out, it'll be college football playoff. We're going to recap 2 big coaching hires that just happened in the world of college football, as well as the Heisman Trophy Ceremony this past weekend. It is going to be an electric weekend coming up, and it was an electric weekend already this past weekend for college football. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Pigskin Frenzy on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Joel Norris, and whether you're watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify, listening on Podbean, or Apple, a big thank you for taking some time out of your Tuesday to just sit back, watch, and listen to some college football coverage presented by me. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like each episode, leave comments down below. Spotify, Podbean, and Apple, all you got to do is just share around with others and follow on there as well. X, Instagram, all you got to do is type in at pigskin_frenzy. Follow, like the pages there. You're going to get episode updates, news and highlights from across college and NFL football, trivia questions on Instagram stories. Go and answer today's college football question, as well as all things up to date for Pigskin Frenzy. Guys, the website is www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com. There you will find all things up to date for Pigskin Frenzy. Home and About Me page. Learn more about me as your podcast host. There is contact info down below. Name, email, question. I'll answer it on air or off air if need be. There's a platforms page, all the platforms I just mentioned. Click on which one's your favorite listening style for the show. There's also store and affiliations pages. Those and more on that are coming soon to Pigskin as we update the site regularly. So pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com for more on Pigskin Frenzy here, especially in the near future, because the future of Pigskin Frenzy is bright, let me tell you. Guys, college football day today. Ready to rock and roll. And last weekend, I already did one college game, and look at me, got it wrong, right? We're going to recap that one here in a little bit, but surprised with the outcome of that one, we have a loaded slate. We are doing 11 games. We are breaking down and previewing and predicting 11 games. So pretty much half the episode is going to be breaking down and previewing and predicting the games, including at the tail end, the college football playoff first round games. Friday night on ESPN, 3 of them on TNT. 2 of them on TNT, and Tennessee, Ohio State on ESPN. Y'all don't forget about those. And 2 games on ESPN, 2 games on TNT. We got those coming up this weekend for college football. Only 4 games we're covering this weekend for college football. We got 2 games we are previewing and predicting on the 27th. 2 games on the 28th of December, and 3 games on New Year's Eve. So, all credit to the Bowl Masters for that one. We got coaching hires that are probably going to change the trajectory of college football. Old, past, and new in the future is all colliding at one time for an epic 2025, and I cannot wait for 2025. It has been almost 25 years of living on Earth for Joel Norris. No, it's not my birthday. My birthday was in September, but I'm saying in 2025 it will be 25 years of living in the next fall at least. So, guys, keep plugging into Pigskin Frenzy. It's getting bigger. We're close to that margin of 4,300 listeners. Thank you for being a part of the show and the podcast. Keep plugging in. Keep following on all platforms and all channels, and get all the updates for college football, and engage with me, man. I want to hear y'all's thoughts on everything going on in the world of football, especially college football when it comes to these episodes right here. So let's get down to it. Army-Navy, let's briefly go over it, and let's talk about this game, and then we will talk about the coaching hires, Heisman Trophy Ceremony, and then we will get into the rest of the show with the preview and predictions. So let's get down to it. Army-Navy. Excuse me, Army-Navy. Picked Army to win this one. And out of the one game I cover, you would think, you cover 4 games a week, you get a lot of those right, but the one game you get wrong. Well, I got this one wrong now, didn't I? Final score, Navy 31, Army 13. It wasn't close. It really was not close. Navy defeats Army, and Navy gets its first Commanders and Chiefs trophy for the first time since 2019. Huge year for a lot of teams in 2019. It's been 5 years since then. So huge thing for Navy. Navy finishes the regular season 9-3. Army finishes 11-2. Army has an Independence Bowl date with Louisiana Tech. Marshall dropped out due to transfer portal departures and limited amount of players. So in Louisiana Tech, a 5-7, due to their academics and their academics meeting the requirements academically, gets to be in a bowl game. So they're replacing Marshall to play Army in the Independence Bowl. Navy is playing Oklahoma in the Armed Forces Bowl. So we're not covering those games. I'm just letting you guys know. 9-3 Navy, 11-2 Army. Let's talk about Navy in this one. And let's talk about what happened in the game. Blake Horvath, 4 for 9, 107 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had 25 carries, 204 yards, 2 touchdowns with 8.2 yards per play. This man had 311 total yards and 4 total touchdowns. 311 total yards and 4 total touchdowns in this game on Army's defense. He went off in this game. He knew that something was clicking in this game. That's a positive circle moment that we're going to put for this guy, for Blake Horvath for Navy. It's positive circle moment there, lodged in the brain. He knew this was a rivalry game. He knew he had to take control of this offense. And what did he do? He put up 204 yards on the ground. He put up 107 yards passing, and he lit the defense of the Black Knights up. And that's truth be told. Robinson, 29 yards, 29 yards, 24 yards, 6 carries for Teska. The running was insane. Heinreich, 52-yard touchdown reception. Chapman had an 18-yard touchdown reception. Teska had a 31-yard reception. Defensively, they had 2 turnovers, 2 interceptions for this. 2 turnovers. Three interceptions, 3 turnovers. This defense did. They played physical. They slowed Army down, and Army was the number 1 rushing team. Navy slowed them down because Navy had the top 10 rushing defense. They slowed them down, and they just physically dominated the game. They dominated the game the whole way. They really did. Positive circle moments was Blake Horvath, obviously. The running game was huge. 271 rushing yards compared to the Black Knights, 113 rushing yards. Passing, 107 compared to 65 passing yards with the Army. 378 total yards for Navy compared to their 178 yards in total yards, and 6.9 yards per play compared to their 3.2 yards per play. They dominated them in all aspects of the game. Special teams, defense, and offense. This game was not close. Navy was ready. Army was just feeling, coming off the heels of a conference title win. They were feeling good. They let this game slip past them, and Navy won the rivalry game. They won the Commanders-in-Chiefs trophy overall between Army and Air Force. Third down efficiency, 7 for 13. Pretty good on third down efficiency. I said that Army needed to slow them down on third downs, and they did not. So that's a positive circle moment for this team. 0 turnovers for Navy. Navy turned the ball over pretty good. Blake Horvath usually turns the ball over a lot. He did not in this game. He played clean and protected the football. That's really all you can say. The only blemish that you can say really is 5 penalties for 70 yards. That's the only negative circle moment you got for the midshipmen. This is a good football team. They're going to play a good Oklahoma team in the Armed Forces Bowl, so we're going to see how Brent Venables is going to be prepared for that challenge and how Horvath's going to be prepared for that challenge. But Navy went into this game and dominated, and it wasn't close. That's all you really got to say. 31-13 was the final score. Navy has an Armed Forces Bowl date with Oklahoma. Congratulations to Navy on winning this ball game. It was an effort on all phases of the ball, special teams, defense, and offense. So good job, both lines of scrimmage as well. Congratulations for the midshipmen on winning a Commanders-in-Chief trophy for the first time since 2019. Let's talk about Army really quick before we move on, because we got a lot of games to cover here. And, I wouldn't say a little time frame to do so, but we got to do it within the span of the normal time frame that we've been doing these shows on. So Army football is a team it's a team that when you look at Army, you think, this is a dominant team. They can run the ball all over pretty much anybody, and they can dominate on the line of scrimmage. You would think they could. Notre Dame was not one of those teams, so let's scratch that. But you would think that they were going to dominate. It would be the other way around. It'd be 31-13 Army. Army was going to dominate Navy. Tulane dominated Navy. Army dominated Tulane. And it all comes full circle because Navy dominated Army. So it's really weird. It's really weird how that happens. Passing is still a concern for Army. Bryson Daly only had 65 passing yards, 1 touchdown. He was 7 for 16, 3 picks. Kanye Uduo, who's now in the transfer portal, played his last game for Army there, 53 yards, 14 carries. Bryson Daly had 52 yards, 19 carries on the ground. Short had 9 yards, 5 carries. Reed had 29 yards, 3 receptions, and a touchdown. And that pretty much does it. Really, it pretty much does it. They defense played physical for a little bit, but really couldn't hold on because Navy just ran over them. There wasn't a lot to write home about for Army in this game. They just got outclassed when they got beat on the line of scrimmage. They were out physical in this ball game. They didn't come to play, and they weren't in the right mindset to play this game. I could tell because I saw the game. 5 for 14 on third down efficiency, which is not bad. Penalty yards, 1 penalty for 5 yards. They were playing pretty disciplined ball. Good on them on that. Those are some positive circle moments. Rushing was 113, but not their normal average. And I would say those are some positive circle moments for this team. Some of the negatives, you got to look at the passing. They couldn't throw the ball well, 65 yards total. And the main thing really was the 3 turnovers. They turned the ball over 3 times against a Navy team, even though they're 9-3, or they were 8-3 at the time, now 9-3. It's still a pretty good team. Navy is not a bad football team. That's why I did this game, because everyone was telling me to do this game and cover this game this past weekend, and that's why I did it, because this team is not bad defensively or on offense. Navy was prepared. Army was not. That's all you got to say. I mean, that's really all I got, because Army was not prepared in this ball game. Bryson Daly, solid football player. Army, solid football team. The American Conference champions, just not prepared in this ball game against Navy. Navy wins it 31-13. Army has got an Independence Bowl date with Louisiana Tech. Navy has the Armed Forces Bowl against Oklahoma. Final score, 31-14. Navy defeats Army in a blowout. And let's see how Army can bounce back to finish their season off right, 12-2 against Louisiana Tech. How is Navy going to finish off their season against Army? That is yet to be determined. So we just tune into those games, I guess, and we will see. That was the Army-Navy game. Let's talk about the coaching changes in the league, and let's talk about the Heisman Trophy Ceremony before we get to these preview predictions here on Pigskin Frenzy. 7 bowl games, 4 playoff games, 11 total games that we are breaking down, because we're only covering, 7 bowl games. And announcement, obviously, this is the final college episode for Pigskin Frenzy of 2024. We are not doing it on Christmas Eve or on New Year's Eve. We're going to be spending time with our families. We're going down to Mississippi. We won't be around on Christmas Eve, so no coverage there. And there will be no episode for NFL this coming up. On the 26th of December either. So this will be the final college episode. The final NFL episode of 2024 will be Thursday, and the next Pigskin Frenzy episode in general will be on January 2nd in the year of our Lord 2025. So January 2nd, 2025 will be the next and latest episode of Pigskin Frenzy right after this coming up Thursday's episode. So that's the big announcement there. And we'll be covering these games still. We'll just be going to be covering it on Pigskin Frenzy social media, on Instagram and X. Make sure to follow on there and keep up to date with everything Pigskin Frenzy, Pigskin_Frenzy. We'll be covering next week's coverage as well on social media. Okay, just that's the announcement there. Talk about these coaching changes. Let's go to West Virginia. Neil Brown was let go by West Virginia. They were looking for a new head coach, and they were thinking, you know what will be funny? Let's go back to the past. Let's go back to the good old days of the, of the option formation type play system, and let's, convert on the read options. Let's convert on a wild octane offense on the ground and the innovator of option play. Let's interview one man in particular that we're very familiar with. And they interviewed him, and they hired him to be the next head coach. West Virginia has hired former West Virginia head coach and now former Jacksonville State head coach Rich Rodriguez as their next head coach in the Big 12 at West Virginia. He is back in Morgantown. Country road, take me home to a place I belong. You're probably not going to want to hear me sing. I'll sing it anyway. West Virginia, take me home. That's what he's been singing. Rich Rod is home. He has been taken home. He is. They took him home to West Virginia, and Rich Rod is back as the head coach at West Virginia. Kind of like how Scott Frost went back to UCF. But this is deeper. What Rich Rod is back. He is going to be coaching West Virginia, and this hire is interesting for me. One, because there's no more Big East football. Number two, it's the Big 12, and I want to see how he's back in the Power 4 here. The last time we saw him in the Power 4 was at Arizona, I believe, and it was a unique. He had a couple of good seasons in Arizona, but then it never panned out. He went to the Group of 5. He did well at Jacksonville State, and he loved Jacksonville State, but then ended up going to West Virginia. Going back to West Virginia. West Virginia had a pretty mildly good upsets back in the day. He had pretty good teams. He had pretty good players. Those players to be notable: Pat White, Steve Slayton, the dynamic duo back in the day, beat Georgia in that Sugar Bowl upset. That was humongous. Then he had Geno Smith and Tavon Austin as well. So some good and notable players that he coached there. How is he going to recruit? How is he going to use the portal? Those are the questions that you got to ask yourself, especially in this day and age. How are we going to use NIL? There's a lot of people that believe in Rich Rodriguez as the head coach at West Virginia still. They believe in him. It's just a different day and age. His second stint's coming up now. Let's see how he does, and let's see how he plays. I don't know. And how he coaches. I don't know. We just got to see how he recruits in high school recruiting and NIL, how he's going to lure people to the Big 12. Let's see. Let's just see what happens. I don't think it's going to be immediate success maybe to start out, but it could be. You never know. I think it's going to be his first year back, so it's going to take some time, and then 2026, maybe you get the ball rolling on a lot. So let's see what West Virginia does. I'm curious to see how it goes down. West Virginia has hired former West Virginia head coach and Jacksonville State head coach Rich Rodriguez to be their next head coach at the West Virginia Mountaineers. He is back in Morgantown. The Rich Rod era, part 2, begins now. So congratulations on him on that. Let's talk about one more coaching change before we get to the Heisman ceremony and break down and preview and predict these games. UNLV has made a coaching hire because Barry Odom went to Purdue. Strong hire there. Let's see how he does there. We talked about that one last week. And then UNLV was like, you know what? Let's splash it. Let's make a splash hire, home run hire. Let's go with a home run, in my opinion at least, that it's going to get some people talking. And boy, did this one. UNLV interviewed, and they gave him the job, UNLV has hired former Florida and former Mississippi State head coach and current ESPN analyst Dan Mullen as their next head coach at UNLV. Dan Mullen is back in college football as a head coach in the Group of 5, in the Mountain West, in the Group of 5 at UNLV. UNLV coming off a back-to-back Mountain West championship appearances with Barry Odom. Barry Odom's a solid coach. They got talent as well. This is a home run hire. This was probably my favorite hire of the weekend, and Bill Belichick went to North Carolina. Barry Odom went to Purdue. Darrell Loggins went from South Carolina OC to App State head coach. Dude, we just talked about Rich Rod going to West Virginia again. Man, this is the home run hire. Let me tell you why. You see what UNLV's been doing the past 2 years? And you think that's just Barry Odom. Yeah, Barry Odom's a solid coach, but that program's got some talent. Dan Mullen has recruited talent at Florida and Mississippi State. He took Mississippi State while they didn't go to the playoffs. They were right outside the playoffs in 2014, the first ever college football playoff. They were in the original incarnation of the first ever rankings of the college football playoff when it had 4 teams in 2014. I remember that. Mississippi State had the number 1 ranking. Mississippi State was number 1. Who led them to that number 1 ranking? Who was the head coach? Dan Mullen. Who had Dak Prescott, Nick Fitzgerald, and a lot of those guys on their team? Dan Mullen. He went to Florida. Florida happened. Kyle Trask was on that team. They were pretty solid in 2019, and then he led them. Then they went to the SEC championship in 2020. He had 2 Heisman finalists in that year. Who was the head coach at Florida then? Dan Mullen. Dan Mullen led him to a New Year's Six Bowl. Florida, and he's misunderstood at Florida because he got fired after 2020 2021 is when he got fired. He had a horrible. He finished out bad in 2020. Unfortunately, after getting blown out by Alabama, they lost. I think they, as I remember correctly, did not win their bowl game. I'm not sure, but they played not so good in 2021. It was a huge dip, and then they let him go. Dan Mullen actually had a solid record for Florida in 2021. In his overall career at Florida was pretty solid. He did well. He led them to one SEC championship berth, and he led them to some New Year's Six bowls. Florida was highly misunderstood with Dan Mullen. Dan Mullen at least was. So they got Billy Napier. Billy Napier finished off strong this year. I'm not hating on Billy Napier. I'm just saying that Dan Mullen was probably their best coach. I think he won the Orange Bowl with them too. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he had a good, solid record besides Urban Meyer at Florida. When he had coached at Florida, Dan Mullen did. Dan Mullen was the OC at Florida when Urban Meyer was there. Dan Mullen and what he did at those two schools in the SEC and had success. So what's he going to do with UNLV? Think about it. That's a home run hire. He is going to recruit to the nines. He's going to use the portal. He is going to get people from recruiting. He's going to make Las Vegas an entertaining place for college football. He's in the entertainment capital of the world in Las Vegas, mainly for fighting and combat sports, but he's about to make football in the entertainment capital of the world and a sport in college football in the Mountain West. This is a home run hire for resources. He's going to use all the resources. He's going to use the portal. He's going to use the NIL collective and the packaging. He's going to do it all up there. And this could eventually lead him back to the Power Four. Who knows? Dan Mullen's back in college football as a coach, and I think he's going to run wild at UNLV. UNLV's not going anywhere. UNLV could have a shot at going to the playoff in the group of five under Dan Mullen. I'm not joking. Remember what I said on December 17th of 2024. December 17th of 2024. I'll make a note of it. I'll put it on my phone. Maybe not next year, this coming up season, but in the next couple of years, he could lead them to a college football playoff berth with the talent that they got. I'm just saying. UNLV has hired Dan Mullen, next head coach for the Rebels in the Mountain West in the group of five. Do not underestimate Dan Mullen at UNLV. Watch out for that because Spencer Danielson's got some competition now at Boise State in the Mountain West. That's a team that you do not want to mess with now with Dan Mullen being there. So they have hired him, a strong home run hire, in my opinion, there. Those are the coaching changes around the league, around the college football. Let's talk about the Heisman Trophy Ceremony really quick, and let's discuss my thoughts on it before we break down these 7 bowl games and these 4 first-round college football playoff games for this weekend and conclude the episode of Pigskin Frenzy. Now, let's talk about the Heisman Trophy Ceremony, and let's discuss it. Guys, I said that Travis Hunter was going to win the award and that my vote was for Ashton Jeanty. And I said that Ashton Jeanty deserved it, and I'm going to get into that in a minute. The winner of the 2024 Heisman Trophy was Colorado's Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter did win the Heisman Trophy, like I said. My vote was for Ashton Jeanty. I will explain why. I think that Travis Hunter is deserving. He is 100% deserving. I said that last week. He deserves it, and he's earned it. He has earned the Heisman Trophy. Two-way player. Majority of the snaps in college football, he's an absolute animal. He's a stud. He's probably the most outstanding player in college football at wide receiver and defensive back. He's the second receiver in like 4 years to win the Heisman Trophy behind Devontae Smith at Alabama during the COVID year. And he's the first defensive player to win the award probably since Charles Woodson. So, probably since Charles Woodson maybe. So he is a defensive player that won the award. Also, he deserves it. Heisman Trophy winner, Travis Hunter. He deserves it. He's done everything for Colorado. He has brought them to where they are in the Alamo Bowl. He is a solid football player. Give him the Heisman Trophy, 100%. Here's why I voted for Ashton Jeanty, though. Jeanty is on the pace of doing something that no other running back has done before him. He's going for Barry Sanders' record. That is single-season rushing record. We can look it up. Ashton Jeanty currently has 2,497 yards. He averages about 150 plus yards per game. He could do that if they win the quarterfinal Fiesta Bowl. Jeanty could break that record. If he rushes for that much against Penn State or SMU, whoever they play against, they could do that. And Boise State could end up going to semifinal, and he could do it there too. That means they would have to go to the national championship so he can break the record. But Jeanty is 2,497 yards. He's got a lot. A lot, all right? Barry Sanders, college record, is 2,628 yards. 2,628 yards. Jeanty is on the verge of doing something that no other running back has done before him. Barry Sanders won the Heisman Trophy, and I thought Ashton Jeanty should have won the Heisman Trophy too. This was the closest Heisman voting margin since 2009, when Mark Ingram won the award. It was close, very close. Hunter won it by that much. It was close. The fan vote, Nissan Heisman fan vote, voted for Ashton Jeanty. The popular vote was Ashton Jeanty to win the award. The voting was Travis Hunter. That's what matters. Voting the Heisman Trust voting, and that matters. Hunter won the Heisman Trophy. I think in this year there was in my wish. There was a wish that I think we could have had two Heismans and like split the award, have a co-Heisman, because Jeanty equally deserves it just as much as Hunter does, and Hunter and vice versa. So that was my only thought. That's my thought. I thought Jeanty deserved it because of the record, and it's a once-in-a-generation type running that he's doing, and he's incredible. Group of five or not, he's just incredible. And to me, I think if without Jeanty, Boise State probably wouldn't have been in the college ball playoff. I really don't. Jeanty is a stud. He's amazing. He is what makes that offense tick. They revolve around Ashton Jeanty, and to me, he was I think a good choice for the Heisman Trophy. That's my thoughts. I do think Travis Hunter deserves it. I think Hunter deserves it also, and I think he is a good Heisman Trophy winner. Congratulations to Travis Hunter on winning the 2024 Heisman Trophy. Jeanty came close, and let's see what both of these guys do. Hunter's got an Alamo Bowl game, who will play his last game before going to the NFL. Jeanty will play the Fiesta Bowl on New Year's Eve in the quarterfinal against the winner of Penn State and SMU. That was the Heisman Trophy thoughts. Let's preview and predict some of these games. 11 games to break down and preview and predict before we conclude today's episode of Pigskin Frenzy. Let's do the 7 bowl games first, and then we will do the college ball playoff first round for this weekend. The 7 bowl games that we are doing are very interesting. 7 key bowl games that we have picked out, and I'm excited to do them. Starting off for two games on December 27th. 2 games on December 27th. Birmingham Bowl on December 27th, Georgia Tech versus Vanderbilt. This game is going to be one of the most, if not the most underrated bowl game in bowl season this year. 2 solidly on-the-rise programs are going head-to-head. Brent Key's doing a tremendous job at Georgia Tech. Clark Lee has had an amazing turnaround with Diego Pavia and company at Vanderbilt this year. Vanderbilt knocked off Alabama, came close to knocking off Texas and Tennessee. Didn't do that, though. Played a close game against South Carolina, played a close game against LSU, beat Virginia Tech. They knocked off a lot of teams. They're a 6-6 team, and they beat Kentucky, beat Auburn, some tough teams that they played, almost beat Missouri. They're a solid football team. Clark Lee was SEC Coach of the Year. Brent Key got the contract extension for Georgia Tech. These coaches are on the rise, and it's going to be fun watching these programs. So watch out for both of these programs in 2025. But they're playing each other here. Let's see who can end their season on a high note in the Birmingham Bowl. Let's talk about Georgia Tech's keys first. Georgia Tech's keys are pretty simple. Number 1, find a way to contain Diego Pavia. Diego Pavia on the ground and through the air is a lethal assassin. He really is. He's a lethal assassin. He's a solid football player. Just find a way to contain him, and I think you got a shot at winning this Birmingham Bowl. Number 2, win the line of scrimmage battle. Georgia Tech, you're up against a physical Vandy team. This is not your average Joe Vandy team like it used to be. Clark Lee has gone out and recruited guys. He is still recruiting guys. A lot of talent is coming in through that portal and looking at Vandy this year and thinking, Vandy's a good football team, right? They're looking at that. In this game, They're still as physical as they're going to be. They're only upgrading, but they're getting more physical. You got to find a way to contain that physicalness up front, win the line of scrimmage, and if you can win the line of scrimmage battle on defensive line and offensive line, you have a shot at winning this ball game. Number 3, win the time of possession battle. If you can win the time of possession battle and hold on and maintain on to the time and the clock, you should be fine. Keep their offense off the field. You should be good in this game. Those are Georgia Tech's keys. I think they should follow those keys to win this game. Vanderbilt's keys are pretty simple. Number 1, win the time of possession battle. Do what you did against Alabama and keep Georgia Tech off the field if you can. Hold on to the time, run the clock, run the ball, keep going, and then you can figure out a way to maintain possession, win the day on that, and you can run clock out and score at will, and then you can win the game that way. Number 2, slow down their running game. Georgia Tech is currently 38th in rushing offense in college football. Stopping the run, Vanderbilt is currently 45th in rushing defense in college football and stopping the run. So Vandy has a solid rushing defense. Georgia Tech has a solid rushing offense. If you can slow down their running game, because Georgia Tech likes to run the ball with Jamal Haynes and Haynes King. If you can slow down their running game, because they kind of eat away at you in the run, you have a shot at winning this ball game. Number 2. Number 3, start off fast and don't take your foot off the brake. You started off fast against Tennessee in the last game on November 30th. You started off really fast. You were up 14-0 against Tennessee and ended up kind of slowing down a little bit in Nashville. Tennessee ended up coming back and winning the ball game, but you started off really fast and good. You took your foot off the brake. You cannot do that against this Georgia Tech team because they will keep going. Do not pump the brakes. You got to floor it. Just floor it. Start off fast. Don't take your foot off the brake, and you have a shot at winning this ball game. Those are Vanderbilt's keys. That was Georgia Tech's keys. Who do I got winning on December 27th in the Birmingham Bowl? I think this game's going to be close. I think both teams are going to be very physical. I think it's going to be underrated. Vanderbilt is going to be a very physical team. I think Vanderbilt can make some key stops. However, I think Georgia Tech's running ability right now is too good to be ignored. I think Georgia Tech's going to find a way to win this ball game. I think the Yellow Jackets are a solid team. Brent Key's doing a heck of a job. I think they're going to contain Diego Pavia enough to get this win. So Georgia Tech is going to win this ball game and find a way to win. I think that it will be a Georgia Tech win and Vandy could cover it. I honestly think it's going to be like a 3-point difference. Honestly, Georgia Tech 27, Vanderbilt 24. Georgia Tech 27, Vanderbilt 24. Georgia Tech kicking a game-winning field goal to win the game. I think their running game and running attack is going to be a little bit too much for them in the end. Georgia Tech wins the Birmingham Bowl 27-24. To defeat Vanderbilt. Georgia Tech wins the Birmingham Bowl over Vanderbilt. Next game up, December 27th, the Las Vegas Bowl. This is the last of 2 games on the December 27th slate. Las Vegas Bowl. Texas A&M and USC in Vegas. USC is back where they first started in Las Vegas in Allegiant Stadium. Here we go. A&M is in Vegas, and they're going bowling against a solid USC team. USC is not playing an LSU team, however. They're playing a team that also beat LSU in Texas A&M. This is a strong Texas A&M team coming off of a huge loss against Texas. We'll see how they rebound from that. USC coming off of a huge loss against Notre Dame. They played a lot of teams close. They're 6-6, but they seem to be better than their record advertises. So this could be a solid game. Let's see who can end their season on a high note in the Las Vegas Bowl on December 27th. Let's talk about Texas A&M's keys in this ball game, and let's see what they can do to win the ball game. Number 1, win on third down. I mean, if you win on third down, you went 4, you should be fine. You didn't do so hot on third down against Texas. You were 4 for 11 on third down against Texas last time. So on the 30th, not so hot on third down. But if you can convert those third downs and capitalize off those drives, you have a shot at winning this ball game against this USC defense. USC's defense is drastically improved, but find a way to capitalize on those third downs. Third down battles are important in this day and age, and it's important in this game. So capitalize on this third downs, and you should be fine. Number 2, you got to minimize those penalties. 6 penalties for 60 yards versus Texas. Close the penalties out, be more disciplined, and you should find a way to win this ball game if you're Texas A&M. So if you're Texas A&M, you'll find a way to win this ball game. That is number 2 for this one. That's number 2. Number 3, establish the running game, man. If you can establish the running game, you should be fine in this one. Number 3, establish the running game. A&M currently is 22nd in rushing offense in college football. USC is currently 54th in rushing defense in college football. Let me tell you something. While it's not a fantastic, outlandish number for USC, they're a lot better and more improved at stopping the run than last year. Very much more equipped this year in tackling and open tackling, especially run tackling. So establish the running game. If you can find a way to gash them a little bit and kind of slice it open, you have a shot at winning this game, especially with the legs of Marcel Reed, Amari Daniels, and Ruben Owens in this game. So if you can do that, you can win. Establish the running game. Here are USC's keys to win this game. Number 1, minimize the penalties. 7 penalties for 69 yards versus Notre Dame. 7 penalties for 69 yards. You cannot do that against a solid A&M team. Notre Dame beat A&M. You cannot do that against a solid team like A&M. Minimize the penalties. Be more disciplined. Clean that up, and you have a shot at being in this game and could win the game. Number 2, you got to protect the football, man. 2 turnovers versus Notre Dame. You do that against Texas A&M, they're going to capitalize on that. So do not turn the ball over. Protect the football, and you should be fine in this ball game. That's number 2. Number 3, you win the line of scrimmage battle and be just as physical as they are. In the trenches, you got to figure out a way to be physical in the trenches, outgame them in the trenches, and win the game that way. That's easier said than done. A&M is a very physical football team. I think that is a big key here, and if you can try to out-physical them in this game, then just finesse them on offense. If you can finesse them that way and Lincoln Riley outplay calls Mike Elko, then you have a shot at winning this ball game in Vegas. Those are USC's keys. That was Texas A&M's keys. Who do I got winning this ball game? Very intriguing matchup. I think that USC is going to give I think they're going to give them a run for their money. I think it's going to be a very close 3 quarters. I think in the end, A&M is going to find a way to out-physical them in the 4th quarter and establish that run game and come away with a win here and seal the win. A&M wins the Las Vegas Bowl, pulls away in the 4th quarter, 35-21. A&M 35, USC 21. I think it's going to go 14. They're going to probably score 14 unanswered and pull away in the 4th quarter and win the game that way. Texas A&M 35, USC 21. USC ends the season 6-7. A&M ends their season 9-4. Texas A&M wins the Las Vegas Bowl and defeats USC. Moving on. The Alamo Bowl, December 28th slate of games. The Alamo Bowl, two games on 28th. Bowl game number 3. Alamo Bowl on December 28th. BYU versus Colorado. You're like, whoa, hey, a conference bowl game? Yes, I got notes on that. I did a little digging. So the reason why BYU and Colorado are playing each other, BYU's already in the Big 12. They were in the Big 12 to start last year. Excuse me. They were independent. They weren't even in the Pac-12. So for the 2024 and 2025 seasons only, starting in 2026, it's going to be different and back to normal. But for the 2024 and 2025 seasons, the Pac-12 or Pac-12 legacy schools, former Pac-12 schools who are departing in 2024, will continue to fulfill their prior conference tie-in role. So technically, Colorado is fulfilling a Pac-12 duty in this ball game, even though they're a Big 12 game. So BYU 10-2, Colorado, because this is a Big 12 game, usually Big 12 Pac-12 game, so they're fulfilling a departing Pac-12 thing. BYU 10-2, Colorado 9-3. Interesting conference game here, a game that we didn't get in the regular season, but now they're going to settle it once and for all in the Alamo Bowl. A lot of people were saying BYU could beat Colorado could beat BYU. Let's find out in the Alamo Bowl in this one. A strong game here. So let's talk about some BYU keys. Number 1, find a way to contain, if you're seeing me on YouTube, I'm striking the pose, find a way to contain the Heisman Trophy winner in Travis Hunter. He's dynamic on both sides of the ball. Find a way to break away from him, contain him, and not let him have such an impact on the game. Find a way to contain him, slow him down, and you should be fine in this ball game. Number 2, protect the football. Three turnovers versus Houston. Clean that up because Travis Hunter will get a hold of that, especially Travis Hunter and the Colorado defense. So protect the football, 3 turnovers versus Houston. Number 3, you got to win on third down. 4 for 10 on third down versus Houston. If you can find a way to capitalize on your drives in third down, you have a shot at beating Colorado in this Alamo Bowl. So you got to figure out a way to capitalize on those drives, and that's a big concern about me with BYU. And then here's an interesting note for me for BYU. I can add an extra one. You're going to have to figure out a way to start off fast and not start off so slow because they've been starting off slow the past few games, and they've lost those games. So find a way to start off slow. If you can figure out a way to start off slow or start off fast and try to win the game that way also, that would be good for this BYU Cougars offense. So that's the 3 and kind of bonus key for BYU in this one. Here are Colorado's keys. Number 1, force turnovers. Force those turnovers and capitalize off those turnovers, and you can win the game that way defensively. Number 2, minimize the penalties. 9 penalties for 79 yards against Oklahoma State. I know that there are a lot of other teams that had other penalties out there, but this is pretty rough. 9 penalties for 79 yards against Oklahoma State. They dominated Oklahoma State. Travis Hunter put on a Heisman performance. Shedeur Sanders put on a pro-level performance. They do not need to do 9 penalties for 79 yards. That you got to lower that, be more disciplined, and you can win the Alamo Bowl that way. That is number 2. And number 3, start off fast. Let them start off slow, catch them on their heels, and start off fast for you guys on offense. Score quick and start off hot. If you do that, I don't think BYU is going to be able to come back from it. So if you do that, you should be fine in this ball game. The questions, if I got for the Alamo Bowl, really, if you want to look at questions, are this. Number 1, who's going to start off fast and start off slow? Number 2, how big of an impact is Travis Hunter going to be? I think, and he always is a big impact, but how can you minimize that a little bit? And number 3, be more disciplined on both parts. BYU struggles with foul penalties too. So how are you going to be disciplined on both parts? That's my main thing. Who do I got winning this ball game in the Alamo Bowl on December 28th? I think this game is going to be close in the first half. I think Colorado is going to do just enough to pull away and find a way to win this game and pull away in the second half. Colorado is going to win the ball game. I think Travis Hunter's too dynamic. I don't think they're going to have an answer for him. I think Shedeur Sanders is going to play a solid last ball game before he departs for the NFL as well. Colorado wins the ball game. I think they start off fast and win it. They get the job done. I'm going to go by a score of 35-17. 35-17, Colorado 35, BYU 17. I think Colorado will win. I think they'll go 10-3. And finish the season 10-3. BYU will finish the season 10-3 as well. Colorado 35, BYU 17. Colorado gets the win, defeats BYU, and wins the Alamo Bowl. December 28th. Last December 28th game. The Pop-Tart Bowl. You don't think we're not going to cover the Pop-Tart Bowl, did you? Spoiler alert. You guys, it's a spoiler alert that I presented like a few weeks back. Of course I'm going to cover the Pop-Tart Bowl. Who's not going to cover the Pop-Tart Bowl? The Pop-Tart Bowl is awesome. There's going to be 3 mascots there. I wish I was there in Orlando. Pop-Tart Bowl, waving around, big, gigantic Pop-Tarts. Look at the trophy. I mean, come on. Check it out on social media, the Pop-Tart Bowl trophy. There's a toaster with Pop-Tarts popping out of the football. It's insane. If you guys get rid of the Pop-Tart Bowl, it will be a dawning of a depressing day. I will be in slumber for a day if you get rid of the Pop-Tart Bowl. Never get rid of the Pop-Tart Bowl. It is the best bowl game of all time. I'm exaggerating, but it is a solid bowl game. Iowa State in Miami. And let me go on and tell you, and this is me being serious, how valuable the Pop-Tart Bowl is. Iowa State and Miami are playing against each other in this ball game. A solid game with the Pop-Tart Bowl trophy on the line. It's a solid bowl game. Who's not going to be entertained? I know I am. Giant Pop-Tarts everywhere. 2 teams dancing, or 3 mascots dancing around, and it's Miami and Iowa State. Entertaining day for football, if you ask me. 10-3 Iowa State coming off of a huge loss in the Big 12 championship game. They're looking to bounce back. Miami looking to bounce back and win the Pop-Tart Bowl after a huge stunning upset against Syracuse in New York. Something's got to give here. Who's going to end their season on a high note? Iowa State's keys are this. Number one, don't let them start off fast. If you let Miami start off fast in this one, you have a strong shot to lose the game. So do not let that offense start off fast. Keep them on their heel. Make that defense be physical. Slow them down on offense, and don't let them start off fast to begin with, and you should be fine in this ball game. Number two, protect the football. 3 turnovers versus Arizona State in the Big 12 title game. So just protect the ball. Rocco Beck needs to protect the ball, protect the ball, play clean ball, and then you should be fine in this game. It's huge, huge key in this one. Do not turn the ball over as much. Number 3, and this is a pretty big key here, establish the running game. If you're Iowa State, establish the running game. They are currently 68th in rushing offense in college football. Miami, however, is currently 18th in rushing defense in college football. So they're 18th in stopping the run. They have a solid defense in that. Number 3 is establish the run game, because if you can beat them through the air like Syracuse did, Iowa State could probably do that too. But I think you should make a statement on the ground or have a balanced offensive attack. And if they run the ball and they cannot stop you on the ground, you have a strong shot at beating this Miami Hurricanes football team. So if you can run the ball well and establish and run it effectively, you have a shot at running and winning the Pop-Tart Bowl if you're the Cyclones of Iowa State. Those are Iowa State's keys. Miami's keys are simple. Number 1, you got to minimize those penalties. 9 penalties versus 77 yards. I was for 77 yards versus Syracuse. That's pretty rough. That's rough. 9 penalties. You got to clean that up. Be more disciplined. Iowa State will take advantage of that because they've done it before in their games. Number 2, you got to win on third down. They did pretty solid on third down against Syracuse. Not perfect, but pretty solid. I mean, pretty decent. 6 for 11 on third down versus Syracuse. If you can do a little bit better than that against Iowa State's defense and capitalize on those drives, you have a strong shot at winning this ball game, especially with Cam Ward at quarterback. Number 3, you got to create those explosive plays. Find explosive plays, create them. Arizona State was doing that to Iowa State's defense in the Big 12 title game. They were finding open men, creating perfect matchups, and creating explosive plays out of those matchups. Miami's offense can do the same thing. Miami's offense can do the exact same things, and I believe that Miami's offense can do that. So they can do it against Iowa State's defense. If you find a way to create explosive plays in this ball game, you have a strong shot at winning this game if you're Miami. The questions is Miami's defense going to show up, and is Iowa State's defense going to show up? Whose defense is going to show up the most? I think the defenses are important in this ball game. They got to figure out ways to try to stop each other and slow each other down. Very important in this Pop-Tart Bowl. Who do I have winning the Pop-Tart Bowl? I think this game's going to be close. It's going to be a very close game. Iowa State's got some talent. I think they're going to get do some good stops on defense. I think Miami's defense is going to get some good stops. I think if it comes down to it, I think it could be a quarterback battle. I think close, a very close game. I think last possession does it. I think Miami closes out their season with a win here against Iowa State, and they win the Pop-Tart Bowl. I think it's going to be a score of 28-24. Miami 28, Iowa State 24. Miami defeats Iowa State to win the Pop-Tart Bowl and, eat the Pop-Tarts and have a solid ending and go 11-2. 11-2 Miami. Iowa State goes to 10-4. 10-4. Miami defeats Iowa State to win the Pop-Tart Bowl and celebrates with the giant Pop-Tarts and the Pop-Tart Bowl trophy. You can't even get any better than Pop-Tart Bowl, man. It really, really can't. Man, we got 3 bowl games left. 3 bowl games to talk about left before we get to the college ball playoff first round for this weekend. The Texas Bowl on December 31st to kick off the 3 New Year's Eve games we're going to do. Spoiler alert, we're going to do the Fiesta Bowl and Sugar Bowl and all those games. We're going to do the Fiesta Bowl, of course. That's a 4th game we'll do. But New Year's Eve, Texas Bowl, LSU versus Baylor. Quite the interesting matchup. Dave Aranda, his old foe, and his old, not foe, but old team for defensive coordinator before he left to take the Baylor job, crossing paths again in Houston, Texas. Texas Bowl, New Year's Eve. LSU's 8-4, looking to end their season on a high note. They are ravishing the transfer portal. Let's see how they do there. But Baylor is a team that's misunderstood. They have been a quietly solid team in the Big 12. If the cards would have been dealt right and Baylor wouldn't have lost some games, Baylor, as a 2-loss team, could have been in the Big 12 title conversation. They were a solid football team. Sawyer Robinson and company on offense is a solid group. Excuse me, they play Colorado close. Solid group, on offense. David Reyna has saved his job quite well. I'm just saying. And their rushing attack is pretty solid. So people got to get ready for, Delcy Stevenson's got to get ready for that. Okay, keys to the game. They're both looking to end their seasons on a high note. Because Washington and Pendergrass are solid running backs. Number one, this is for LSU. LSU's keys here are simple. Number one, minimize the penalties. Number one is minimize the penalties. 6 penalties for 46 yards versus Oklahoma. Got to do a little bit better than that because I know LSU, when they keep committing penalties, they keep going, and it keeps going, and keeps going. LSU's got to slow down the penalties. Number one, minimize the penalties. Be disciplined. 6 penalties for 46 yards versus OU. Can't happen against Baylor. Number one, minimize the penalties. Number two, start off fast like you did against OU and keep this Baylor Bears defense on its heels. If you can find a way to do that, Garrett Nussmeier keeps it on its heels, starts off fast, and starts off white hot. You have a strong shot at winning this ball game. Number three, establish the run game. Easier said than done. LSU is currently 107th in rushing offense in college football. Baylor is currently 78th in rushing defense in college football. They need to have a balanced attack in this ball game. Run the ball with Caden Durham. Run the ball with Josh Williams. Run the ball with Jackson. Run the ball. Run the football. Be better on the ground. Have a balanced attack. And be a little bit not one-dimensional through the pass. So create a balanced attack and figure out a way to establish that run game and get the running game going in this game. Because if you do, you have a strong shot to win this ball game. It's going to be easier said than done. The LSU's got a lot of opt-outs on the O-line, so let's see how that ends up going. Those are the 3 keys for LSU. The 3 keys for Baylor are simple. Number one, force turnovers. Because if they can force some turnovers, they can find a way to win this game. LSU is a domino effect, which means if they force a turnover, LSU's going to turn the ball over again. And then again, and the dominoes start to fall. It happens in every game. They usually throw a turnover in. Happens in every game. It's happened all throughout the year. This could be no different. Baylor is a quietly underrated good team. So if they force turnovers on defense, and their defense has been very physical, they have a strong, and capitalize on those turnovers, they have a strong shot at winning this game. Number two, establish the running game. Baylor currently is 35th in rushing offense in college football. LSU is currently 64th in rushing defense in college football. So they're better, just like USC. It's crazy how they're paralleled, USC and LSU are, but for the past 3 years, LSU currently is 64th, just like USC, better at run tackling and slowing down and stopping the run. Better at that than last time. So if they can do that, they're fine. If they slow them down, LSU's fine. But if Baylor runs on this defense and LSU lets it happen with Pendergrass and Washington, it's going to be a long day in the office for LSU's defense, and it's going to be a good day for Baylor in the Texas Bowl. Excuse me. Number three, win the time of possession battle. If you can win the time of possession battle in this game, keep LSU's offense off the field, and you capitalize on scoring and running out the clock and managing the clock well, you'll win this ball game. 48 minutes and 14 seconds versus Kansas. Almost near 50 minutes of football total time of possession against Kansas. They dominated Kansas in this game. Pay attention to this. This is going to be a huge factor for Baylor and their team. Win the time of possession battle. And if you capitalize on that, if you're Baylor, you're fine, and you will win this ball game. Hands down, you will win. Those are Baylor's keys. This was LSU's keys. My question is, who's going to stop the running game? Can LSU run the ball? And can Baylor stop it? Can Baylor run the ball, and can LSU stop it? Who can get their ground game off first, and who can really, commit less turnovers and start off fast? So those are my really big questions in this game. I think this game's going to come down to the wire. It's going to be probably one of the best, if not the best game on New Year's Eve. I hardly believe that because it's a very close game. Baylor's a formidable opponent for LSU. I think they're going to match. I think Dave Aranda's going to give it all he has. I think in this ball game, I think Baylor's going to come out to play. However, I think LSU is going to do just enough to get the win here and go to 9-4 and end their season on a high note. Brian Kelly is 2-0 in bowl games against. 2-0 in bowl games against opponents here as the LSU head coach. He will make it 3-0. LSU will win this game. LSU will find a way to win, I think, by a score of 28-21. LSU 28, Baylor 21. LSU goes to 9-4. Baylor goes to 8-5. And LSU ends their season and wins the Texas Bowl by defeating Baylor on a high note. The Reliant Quest Bowl, Alabama and Michigan. Before we go, the last two bowl games before we do our playoff coverage, Alabama and Michigan on December 31st on New Year's Eve, the Reliant Quest Bowl. Alabama's 9-3, Michigan is 7-5. The playoff committee did not put Alabama in, so what they did was, you know what, we're going to reward you still. We're going to give you a rematch with Michigan, the team that knocked you out of the Rose Bowl last year. Congratulations in last year's 14 playoff. So that's how they reward Alabama, by giving them a rematch for Michigan. It's a rematch for the ages, as they say. Bama 9-3, Michigan 7-5. Michigan's looking to end their season on a high note after beating Ohio State. Bama is looking to end their season on a high note after just missing the playoffs, after beating Auburn in the Iron Bowl, and they're looking to end Kalen DeBoer's first year in double digits. Alabama has not lost four or more games in a season since 2006. Okay. And that's huge. Or since 2007. Since 2007. First year of Nick Saban. That's huge. Anyway, let's talk about this game. Alabama's keys are simple. Who's going to continue the momentum and end their season on a good note? Number one, protect the football in this ball game. I think Michigan's got a better defense than Auburn does. I think that's four turnovers in the Iron Bowl versus Auburn. If they do that against Michigan, Michigan's going to find a way to upset them. I think that if they did this against anybody else, Alabama would have lost the ball game. 4 turnovers versus Auburn is not good. Luckily, Auburn wasn't the best team this year. If they can protect the ball and play clean ball against this Michigan defense, they will find a way to win this game. That's number one for Alabama. Number two, establish the running game. Alabama currently is 41st in rushing offense in college football. Michigan is currently 3rd in rushing defense. You got to figure out a way to slice through that defense. If you can find a way to mix it up with Jalen Milroe, mix it up with Jam Miller, you have a shot at winning this ball game. So establish the run game, make them tired on defense, and win the game that way. Establish the run game. Number 3, slow down their running game. Michigan is currently 69th in rushing offense in college football. Alabama is currently 52nd in rushing defense in college football. Khalil Mullins is a good back. Donovan Edwards has opted out. He will not play in this game. But Khalil Mullins is a solid running back. If he can find a way to get yards off the ground and get into a consistent rhythm, Michigan will be on fire on the ground. Alabama's got to figure out a way to slow down their rushing attack and have Michigan beat them through the air, which that's what you need. You need Michigan to try to beat you through the air because that's where you get them. They do not have the quarterback strength to do that. I think if they slow down the run, Alabama will most likely win this ball game. That's number 3 for Alabama there. Those are the Alabama keys. Let's talk about Michigan's keys in this ball game. Number 1, slow down their running game. It's pretty much the same keys. Number 1, it's the keys, but in role reversal for Michigan. Number 1, slow down their running game. If you can figure out a way to contain Jalen Milroe on the ground, and contain Jam Miller on the ground, you should be fine in this ball game. Number 3, establish the running game with Khalil Mullins. If you can find a way to get Mullins on the ground and get him white hot and run the ball effectively, you have a strong shot at upsetting Alabama in the Reliant Quest Bowl. And number 3, force turnovers. Let Jalen Milroe make a few mistakes. Let him fumble. Let him go with picks and turn the ball over. If its defense can find a way and figure out a way and a will to turn the ball over, you have a strong possibility of coming home with an upset win in the bowl game in Tampa. Those are Michigan's keys. That was Alabama's keys. Some questions that I got, though. Number 1, who's going to establish the run game and who's going to slow down the run game? Those are the main questions I got in this ball game. And if so, Can Michigan's quarterbacks hold up if their running game gets sawed off and slowed down? That's my questions. I could already answer that question. No, for Michigan on that Michigan side. I think there's going to be some running in this game. I think in the second half or later in the game, who do I got winning the Rely Quest Bowl, by the way? I think this game's going to come down to a second half pull away. I think they're going to be close in the first half. I think late in the third quarter, early fourth quarter is when we start to see some pull away. And I think Alabama's going to pull away in this game and find a way to win this game. Alabama's going to do just enough to run the ball, protect the ball. Michigan's going to get slowed down late in the game. Alabama wins the game and gets their revenge on Michigan. Alabama wins 31-17. Alabama 31, Michigan 17 in the Rely Quest Bowl. Alabama goes to 10-3. Michigan goes to 7-6. Alabama wins the Rely Quest Bowl and defeats Michigan and gets revenge from last year's playoff game in the Rose Bowl. Alabama wins it 31-17. Moving on, the last bowl game that we are doing before we go to the college ball playoff games, the last bowl game that we are covering is the Citrus Bowl on New Year's Eve. An interesting matchup, South Carolina versus Illinois. Both teams 9-3. Both teams have had tremendously good seasons. Orlando, the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. South Carolina versus Illinois on New Year's Eve, December 31st. South Carolina is coming off of a huge win against Clemson, and they have had a solid, good season behind Lenore Sellers. Illinois has had some impressive wins in their own right. Solid win against Michigan. Played Penn State close. Got blown out by Oregon, unfortunately. But in those losses and in those wins, they played close. So 9-3. Who's going to get to a 10-win season, and who's going to end their season on a good note, really, here? South Carolina's keys are simple. Number one, minimize the penalties. 7 penalties for 66 yards over Clemson. You cannot do that in this game. You got to minimize that, slow down those penalties, and play disciplined football in this ball game. If you can do that, the Gamecocks can find a way to win this ball game. That's number one for South Carolina. Number two, Lenore Sellers has got to have a breakout game. Do what he did against Clemson. Go off like he did against Clemson. If he has a breakout game, it's going to be hard for Illinois to win this ball game. That's just me being honest. Lenore Sellers has got to have a breakout game in this one. Number three, pressure Luke Altmaier. South Carolina's got one of the best defensive fronts in college football, not just the SEC, in college football. Kyle Kennard, Dylan Stewart, all those guys are on the defensive line, led by those two guys and gentlemen in the garnet and white and black, are just absolute menaces on the line of scrimmage. If they can pressure and sack and get to Luke Altmaier, they will most likely find a way to win this ball game. So pressure Luke Altmaier, huge key there, and they can do it there. Those are the three keys for South Carolina. Number one for Illinois' keys. You got to win on third down in this ball game. 4 for 10 on third downs versus Northwestern. That's not going to be good enough. You got to do a lot better on third down to win the game against South Carolina and capitalize on those third downs if you're Illinois. Number two, protect the football. 2 turnovers versus Northwestern. That's also not good enough. You got to play clean ball, protect the ball, find a way to get everything going on the ground, protect the ball, and be good at having good ball security, and you can have a shot at pulling off the upset against South Carolina in the Citrus Bowl. And number three, pretty big key here, find a way to contain Lenore Sellers. Lenore Sellers has been playing like a madman ever since Texas A&M. He has gone off. He has been a dangerous threat. He is going to be a dangerous threat entering 2025 as well. Find a way to contain Lenore Sellers. He is a solid playmaker, and it makes that offense tick for the Gamecocks. If you can find a way to contain him and slow him down, Illinois will have a shot at pulling off a good upset in Orlando in the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. Big key there. Those are some of the questions I got now. Can they pressure? Can South Carolina pressure Luke Altmaier? Can they get to him? I know Illinois got a good O-line, but can South Carolina's defense get to him? That's number one. Number two, can they find a way to stop Lenore Sellers? That's Illinois' question for me. Can they find a way to contain him and slow him down? Who do I got winning this ball game, the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl? Let me answer those questions for you now. I think South Carolina, this is what I think. I think this game is going to be closer in the first 3 quarters. In the fourth quarter, I think South Carolina will pull away and win the game. I think they will pressure Luke Altmaier. I think that Lenore Sellers will show out and they will find a way to win this ball game and win the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. South Carolina wins 35-21. South Carolina 35, Illinois 21. South Carolina goes to 10-3. Illinois goes to 9-4. South Carolina wins the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl and ends their season on a high note to look forward to the 2025 season. So South Carolina gets the job done and defeats Illinois to win the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. Those are my bowl game picks. Excuse me. Those are my bowl game picks. And that's who I'm picking for the 7 key bowl games that we are covering here on Pigskin Frenzy. That was the bowl game projections. Let's go with the 4 first-round playoff games that we are doing right now. 4 first-round games for this weekend. Here we go. First game, Friday night. This coming up Friday night. 8 Eastern, 7 Central on ESPN in South Bend, Indiana. ESPN and ABC on South Bend in South Bend, Indiana. Indiana 11-1 at Notre Dame, who is also 11-1. Indiana at Notre Dame. Let me go on and tell you something. Who is ready for December? Or ask you guys something. Who is ready for playoff football? Cold playoff football in December. Excuse me. I know I am. I am ready for it. Indiana at Notre Dame. Big questions in this ball game. The temperature and the weather could be a factor. I think both teams are used to it, but the weather and how they can operate is going to be a factor. I got my keys down. Obviously, weather can change, but I got my keys down. Indiana at Notre Dame. Indiana's looking to upset Notre Dame. Notre Dame's find a way to continue their momentum after a huge win against USC. Same with Indiana after blowing out Purdue at their end of their game. Notre Dame keys are simple. Number 1, protect the football. 2 turnovers versus USC. I think that if you protect the ball and be a lot better against this Indiana football team in defense, you will be fine in this ball game. So number 1, protect the football, and you should be fine in this one. Number 2, establish the running game. Notre Dame is currently 10th in rushing offense in college football. Indiana is currently 1st in rushing defense in college football. You're going up against a team that is the best team at stopping the run in college football this Friday night. And it's going to be huge, a huge contest for you at trying to run the football. Indiana can slow the run game down. They're the most yards that Indiana has had on them rushing is 137 total yards. And it was against Charlotte in week 4 back in September. Ohio State put up less rushing yards than Charlotte. So you're going to have to figure out a way to try to get to that defense, and it's going to take physicality to run the football on this defense Friday night. Number 3, win the line of scrimmage battle on both sides. On defensive line and offensive line, win the line of scrimmage battle. And it's about the trenches. You're going to have to win up front. You got to out-physical Indiana in this ball game, and that's a good way to figure out if you can find a way to win this game to advance to the Sugar Bowl. That's Notre Dame's keys in this one. Let's talk about Indiana's keys, and then we will move on to the other 3. Indiana's keys, number 1, slow down their running game. Notre Dame, like I said, top 10 in rushing offense. Indiana's got the best rushing defense out there. If you can figure out a way to contain and slow down Jeremiah Love and Riley Leonard running the football, you'll be fine in this game. I think that if you can do that, play some strong and stingy run defense, you have a shot at winning this game. Notre Dame's a running team. Indiana's got the best running defense in college football statistically. Even though they have not played a lot of teams besides Ohio State, they have the best statistically rushing defense in college football. Just slow them down. Figure out a way to slow them down. Number 2, Curtis Rourke has a breakout game. If Rourke can have a good game, a breakout game, and just go off in this ball game on the road and figure out a way to have one of the best games of his college career, I think Indiana can pull it out maybe. We'll have to see, but he has to have a breakout game in this one for them to win this ball game. Number 3, force turnovers. If you can force Notre Dame to turn the ball over, then I think you got a strong possibility at winning this ball game. That's a huge thing. They did two turnovers versus USC. I think if you can force it and then capitalize off that, then you should be fine in this ball game. The questions that I got are three questions. One, the weather. The weather is snow, 40% chance of snow with the high at that time being 27 degrees temperature. 27 degrees. Is the weather going to be a factor in this ball game? A snowy South Bend, most likely, with 27% temperature. I love December home college football playoff games. I'm starting to love it already, and this is the first incarnation of them. So number one, in Notre Dame, in South Bend, will the weather be a factor? That's number one. That's for both teams. Number two, can Notre Dame run the ball in Indiana? And number three, can they keep up with Notre Dame? Those are the three questions that I got. Who do I got winning this ball game? I think this game is going to be. I think this game's going to be close throughout the third quarter. I think it's going to be first three quarters are going to be good. However, I think Indiana's going to bring a fight. However, I think Notre Dame's going to find a way to pull away in the fourth quarter and win this game outright. I think Notre Dame's a better team than Indiana. I think Indiana has not played anybody. You're going to think Notre Dame hadn't played anybody. Yes, they have not played a full schedule, right? But they have played more teams than Indiana has. They played USC, Army, a lot of teams. And Texas A&M. Also, they beat Texas A&M. They play Texas A&M as well. Indiana has not had the schedule Notre Dame has. I think Notre Dame finds a way to pulls this one out and wins. I think it's going to be a score of 35-21. Notre Dame 35, Indiana 21. I think Notre Dame goes to the Sugar Bowl to play Georgia on New Year's in the quarterfinal in the Sugar Bowl and beats Indiana at home to advance to the quarterfinals to play Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. Give me Notre Dame to defeat Indiana this Friday night. Next up, three more games before we conclude today's episode of Pigskin Frenzy. Excuse me. A showdown in State College. Happy Valley. I am so excited about covering a whiteout playoff game. It's not even funny. Saturday, noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central on TNT, streaming on HBO Max as well. SMU at Penn State. Both teams are 11-2. Both teams are coming off conference championship losses. It's a whiteout home game for Penn State, a big game for James Franklin. Can James Franklin get over the big game hump? That is the main question. Can SMU show everybody why the committee made the right decision about putting them in the playoff? Strong teams, strong offenses, strong running games. Let's see who can pick up back their momentum to go play Boise State in the Fiesta Bowl in the quarterfinals on New Year's Eve. The SMU's keys in Happy Valley are simple because the weather will be a factor in this one as well. Saturday, noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central, Saturday morning. SMU's keys are this. Number one, protect the football. 2 turnovers versus Clemson in the ACC title game. Penn State's defense is slightly better than Clemson, and I think they can capitalize on that in a jiffy. So you have to protect the ball in this game. It is important if you're SMU in this one. Number 2, win on third down. 9 for 18 on third down versus Clemson in the ACC title game. Not too bad on third down, but you got to capitalize on it. And SMU didn't capitalize on it a lot, and I think they need to capitalize on it here in State College this Saturday. So do that, and you should be fine in this ball game. Number 3, slow down their running game. Penn State is currently 19th in rushing offense in college football. SMU currently 4th in rushing defense in college football. You have a top 5 rushing defense in college football. Slow down the huge rushing attack by Penn State. That is a huge key this one. If you can find a way to slow down Kaytron Allen and Nicholas Singleton, you should be fine in this ball game. I think that's a huge key there, is to slow down their running game. That's SMU's keys for this one. Let's go to Penn State's keys. Number 1, establish the running game. 292 rushing yards total versus Oregon in the Big Ten Championship last weekend. Not this past weekend on the 14th, but the 7th. SMU has a top 4 rushing defense. They do. They put up 292 yards on the number 1 team in the nation in the Big Ten Championship game. They exposed Oregon's weakness on rushing defense and stopping the run. 292 yards. They lost, but they still put up 292 yards in that loss. That's crazy. Nicholas Singleton and Kaytron Allen both had over 100-plus yards on the ground. Crazy. crazy. Figure out a way to establish that run and run on their defense. Number 2, force as many 3-and-outs as you can. SMU is a good team on third down, so force as many 3-and-outs as you can, and you should be fine in this ball game. Play defense, play good third down defense, and capitalize on them going 3-and-out. And number 3, create those explosive plays. Clemson was finding good matchups and creating explosive plays in that first half against SMU. Figure out a way to do that against them at home and create those explosive plays within those matchups. I think that's the best way for Penn State to do that and to win this ball game outright. Questions that I got. Snow is 20% chance of snow, right? With 26 as the high. 26 temperature as the high Saturday morning. So snowy, whiteout game in Happy Valley, college football playoff first round home game for Penn State. Couldn't get any better for Penn State and couldn't get any better for the college football playoff in December. Will that be a question? That's number 1. Number 2, for Penn State, can they stop them on third down? That's a big question for Penn State in this game. And number 3, question for SMU, can they slow them down on the ground truly? Who do I got winning this ball game in State College? I think this game's going to be close in the first half. I think that SMU's got a solid rushing defense. However, they have not played a rushing team like this on their schedule. They have not. I think Penn State is going to finally get over that hump. James Franklin's going to get over that hump and find a way to get a win over SMU at home in the playoffs. Penn State gets the win. I think they're going to be explosive on the ground and create those explosive plays. I don't think SMU is going to be able to come back from it. I got them winning 35-14 in the game. You're probably thinking, are you insane? You're underestimating SMU. I'm not. I've been very high on SMU. I just think the way Penn State played in a Big Ten title game and the way SMU played, I'm leaning more towards Penn State running the ball and creating those explosive plays. Give me Penn State 35, SMU 14. Bold pick. I think Penn State's going to blow out SMU in the second half. I really do. Penn State wins 35-14. Penn State moves on to play Boise State in the quarterfinals on December 31st, New Year's Eve. Penn State defeats SMU and wins their home playoff game, and James Franklin gets over the hump of winning big games in the playoffs. Penn State gets the win. Okay, 2 more. Clemson at Texas. 4 Eastern, 3 Central on TNT, streaming on HBO Max. 4 Eastern, 3 Central on HBO Max, and streaming on HBO Max and on TNT. Clemson at Texas. The only thing I have a problem with is Clemson's 10-3, Texas is 11-2. Record matters, I guess. But Clemson won the conference championship. I think this should be reversed. I think Texas at Clemson should be the game. I think Texas should have been the away team, and Clemson should have been playing in Death Valley because they won their conference championship. But who knows? Look, they need to work on that next year, but it's in Austin, home game for Texas, Clemson at Texas. Clemson's just happy to be there. Weather's not going to be an issue in this. Sunny, 56 degrees is the high at kick. It's going to be the warmest playoff game this weekend. The warmest first-round playoff game is Clemson at Texas. So, weather not going to be a factor. It's going to be cold, but it's not going to be a huge factor when it comes to snow and all that. It's going to be beautiful and sunny in Darrell K. Royal Stadium. Motivation for Clemson. They just won the ACC championship. Luckily to be back in the playoff. You cannot exclude the first ever 12-team playoff. You can't leave out Clemson, right? Clemson's been in majority of the 14 playoffs. You got to put Clemson in there, right? Texas is in it again. Texas is one of the best teams in the field. Let's see if they can bounce back from that heartbreaking loss against Georgia in the SEC title game. Clemson's keys are this. Number 1, you got to put pressure on Quinn Ewers. Put pressure on him, get to him, win the line of scrimmage battle on some things, and and put pressure on him. Sack him, cause some turnovers, cause some chaos, put some pressure on Quinn Ewers, make some incompletions happen, and you should be fine in this ball game if you can do that. Number 2, win on third down. 7 for 17 versus SMU in the ACC title game. That's not bad. You capitalize on your third downs, win on third down, and you have a strong shot at winning this ball game this Saturday if you can win on third down if you're Clemson. It was really good for them against SMU. Can they do it against Texas? Number 3, Cade Klubnik has to have a breakout game. And I know Cade Klubnik's been playing much, much more developed and much better this season, but I think this game, he's got to stand out. He's got to stand out, and he has to make accurate decisions, good decision-making, and find open lanes to run and to pass and to thread the needle and create explosiveness on offense for this team. He's got to find a way to do all those things and have a breakout game to win and upset this team in Austin. Those are the 3 keys for Clemson. Number 1 for Texas. You got to protect the football. 3 turnovers versus Georgia in the SEC title game. Clemson is not afraid of forcing turnovers. They are a good team that can force turnovers. So Texas has got to watch out for forcing those from those turnovers. They got to protect the ball, play good on that, and protect the ball and play clean ball, and they should be fine in this game. Number 2, big one, minimize the penalties. You knew I was going to talk about this. 11 penalties for 94 yards versus Georgia in the SEC championship game. I'm not letting that go. Clean up the penalties. Be more disciplined. Some of it was on Georgia. I get that. A lot of it was also on you guys. Clean the penalties up. You should be fine in this game if you can do that. Be disciplined up front and just be disciplined in the game. Number 3, put pressure on Cade Klubnik. Sack him. Force Cade Klubnik to get some turnovers. Put some chaos on him and make him feel the pressure from y'all's perspective on defense. So do that, and you should be fine in this ball game. The 2 questions. Number 1, who's going to get the most pressure being put on them? Quinn Ewers or Cade Klubnik? That's the number 2 thing. Which defense can get to the quarterback this weekend? That's the number 1 question for both teams. Can Texas protect the football and be more disciplined? And number 3, can Clemson win their third down battles and capitalize on their third down battles? Those are the 3 main questions that I got for this, or a few questions that I got for this game this weekend. Who do I got winning this ball game? And I can answer those questions. I think this game's going to be close. I think this game is not going to be the closest. I'll tell you what the closest game's going to be in a minute. I think that this game's going to come down to the wire. I think it's going to be close. I think Texas will pull away within the midway of the 4th quarter, and Texas will win the game outright that way. I think the score is going to be 24-14. Give me Texas to win 24-14. I think it'll be tied entering the 4th. I think Texas will make a field goal and score a late touchdown, make it 24-14. Texas 24, Clemson 14. Texas defeats Clemson to move on to play Arizona State in the quarterfinals in the Peach Bowl on New Year's Day in the quarterfinals. Texas defeats Clemson 24-14 at home, and Texas goes to play Arizona State in the quarterfinals in the Peach Bowl. Texas defeats Clemson and wins their first-round home playoff game. That's my assumption. That's what I think is going to happen. Next up, last but not least, before we conclude today's episode of Pigskin Frenzy, Tennessee and Ohio State. This will be the closest game all weekend. I do. I think it's going to be the closest game all weekend. Tennessee at Ohio State. Tennessee is 10-2. Ohio State's 10-2. In the shoe, weather could be a factor, obviously. Tennessee's coming off a high wave of momentum after beating Vanderbilt and ending their season. They're in the playoffs. Ohio State's trying to look back or trying to take away and bounce back from that huge loss against Michigan. And Tennessee's looking to try to continue their wave of momentum and get to the Rose Bowl to play Oregon in the semifinal on New Year's. Tennessee at Ohio State, 2 strong teams. And here we go. 8 Eastern, 7 Central, ESPN and ABC, night game Saturday night in Columbus, Ohio in the shoe Saturday night. Tennessee's keys are simple. Number 1, start off fast. Nico Amalia-Ava, start off fast with your wide receivers. You got Thornton, you got McCoy, Squirrel White. Start off fast. Run the ball as well with Dylan Sampson. If you can do that and start off fast, you should be fine. Do not start off slow, because you started off slow against Vandy. Do not do that in this game. Don't let up. Put your foot on the gas and start off fast. Get this Ohio State's defense on its heels, and you should be fine in this ball game. Number 2, establish the running game. Tennessee is currently 9th in rushing offense in college football. Ohio State currently 7th in rushing defense in college football. They're a top 10 rushing offense, Tennessee is, under Dylan Sampson. Dylan Sampson can run the football. Ohio State can slow the run down. But Dylan Sampson is a lethal weapon. He's a lethal back, and he can get good runs off and create explosive plays on the ground. He's done that against solid defenses. So if he can establish the run game against this Ohio State defense, it could be a good day for Tennessee in the office coming up this Saturday night. Number 3, win the line of scrimmage battle. I'm going to say my point here in a little bit with that. Win the line of scrimmage battle. I'm going to leave my keys at that because I'm going to talk about that here in just a minute. Those are the 3 keys for Tennessee. I'll get back to that key. Number 1 for Ohio State, do not let them start off fast. If you can do not let them start off fast and you can capitalize off that by starting off fast, you should have a shot at winning this ball game. Number 2, establish the running game. Ohio State currently 59th in rushing offense in college football. Tennessee currently 8th in rushing defense in college football. They have a strong running defense. Ohio State's not a solid running team this year. For what's weird is they have Henderson and Judkins rotating backs, and they don't run the ball nearly as effective. And Tennessee's defense can exploit that this Saturday. So you got to figure out a way to run the ball and get off good runs against this Tennessee defense this Saturday night at home. And number 3, win the line of scrimmage battle. You're going to say, you said it again. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. Those are Ohio State's keys. Question, is the weather going to play into a factor? Cloudy with a chance of snow. It's like 10% chance of snow at kickoff time, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, and 24 will be the high temperature at kickoff. So it's going to be cold, cloudy, with a chance of snow in this ball game. Will weather be a factor in this one for Tennessee and or Ohio State? Most likely not Ohio State, mainly for Tennessee. That's number 1. Also for Tennessee, can they get big chunk plays off on the ground? That's number 1 for Tennessee. Number 2 for Ohio State, can they stop the run? And I have more questions. Can they win the line of scrimmage battle? And this is why I have the line of scrimmage battle tapped up on both. The one thing that Ohio State struggles with on the O-line is a solid defensive line. And then how they struggle to play against. When they play anybody else, they dominate them. But when they play a solid team like Tennessee, like Michigan, or, for example, Oregon, who has a solid defensive line, Ohio State's offensive line cracks. They've proven it time and time again. They did it against Ohio State. They did it against Michigan. Tennessee has one of the best defensive lines in the country, not just the SEC, in the country. They're like South Carolina in the country. Okay? That's a huge key here. Who wins the line of scrimmage battle, and can they beat up on their defensive line? That's a real big question. And run the ball as well. Who do I have winning this ball game? I think this game's going to be close. I think Ohio State will compete with Tennessee in this regard. I think they got talent all over the field. I think it's going to be fairly high scoring, not too much. It's going to be in the 20s and 30s. I think Ohio State takes them to the fourth quarter, tied. I think they're going to break down. I don't trust Ohio State's O-line to compete very well in the end. I think they're going to crack. I think sacks and turnovers could be a factor. The weather, I think we're going to ignore the weather factor here. I think Tennessee's going to be prepared, ready. I think their defensive line is better than their offensive line. I think Tennessee's going to find a way to win this ball game outright in Columbus. I sure do. I said a few weeks ago that Tennessee was a dangerous football team in this field, and I think they're going to prove why Saturday. It's them, Boise State, and Arizona State are the three teams that I find dangerous in this 12-team playoff field. Those are the 3 teams that I said that they were the dangerous teams in the college football playoff field for 12 teams. Tennessee's going to prove why. 31-28 is the final score. Tennessee 31. They kick a game-winning field goal to win. Tennessee 31. Ohio State 28. Ohio State finishes their season 10-3. Tennessee goes to 11-2 and moves on to play Oregon in the Rose Bowl on New Year's Day. Tennessee defeats Ohio State, upsets Ohio State in the shoe, and wins the game outright by a game-winning field goal. Before we conclude on that result, again, the offensive line, for me, is not strong enough to play against Tennessee. I hope they prove me wrong. I really do. If they prove me wrong, if they do it, if they prove me wrong and do it, I'm going to eat my words. I'll eat my crow. But they have not shown me that yet in two pivotal games. The rivalry game between Michigan and Ohio State and the game of the year candidate between Oregon and Ohio State. They have not shown me that yet. Tennessee 31, Ohio State 28 in the shoe. That was the college football playoff first round matchups. Those were the bowl game games. That just about does it for Pigskin Frenzy. Guys, a big thank you for taking some time out of your Tuesday to just sit back, watch, and listen to some college football coverage presented by me. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like each episode, leave comments down below, Spotify, Podbean, and Apple. All you got to do is just share around with others and follow on there as well. X, Instagram, Facebook, not Facebook. Type in Pigskin Frenzy. Follow up the pages there at Pigskin_Frenzy. We'll get updates, news, and highlights from all across college and NFL football. Trivia questions on Instagram, posts, and stories. Go and answer today's college football question as well as all things to date for Pigskin Frenzy. Guys, the website, www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com. Keep checking that out. Guys, a big thank you for taking some time out of your Tuesday to just sit back, watch, and listen to some college football coverage. We're going to be back Thursday for December 19th, our last episode of the 2024 year before we come back January 2nd. NFL edition of Pigskin Frenzy. We're going to recap Week 15 and preview and predict Week 16 of the NFL season and to see who's in and out on some key injuries for the NFL Pigskin Frenzy injury report. Until Thursday, I'm Joel Norris signing off. We will see you then. For everybody out there, please and always stay the course. God bless you all. We're praying for you all. I'll say it again. Stay the course.